Welcome, Richard Geer.
All right. Speaking of long distance Reiki, you can see my face. I'm starting to bliss out. And I must be getting long distance Reiki from all of you. I could feel the energy just glowing with it. That's what I want to get into. I want to get into several things about what's happening now too. But there was something I was going to say, especially the folks who tuned in after I gave a whole spiel on astrology. But let me say it one more time. I'm what's called a free will astrologer. In other words, I'm here to mirror your power, your genius, your nature. And I'm never asking you to agree with me or believe anything I say. I'm here to evoke your genius, your knowing, and then it's yours. I'm just a boatman taking you to a place to play in, which is your own soul. And then you leave my words behind, and so it's not so much, in other words, I'm speaking to your entire being, not to your mind. Okay, I'm evoking feelings as well as thoughts, and just taking you on a realization voyage, I guess is the way I might put it. And for me, astrology is a kind of worship, meaning I am honoring you, okay, and I am supporting you in feeling the magic and the power that is only yours. Because who really knows us? Do we know who we really are? Do other people really know who we are? Who really gets us? And the more we get ourselves, the more visible we can be in the expression of who we are. I once ran a store for a woman who said she had spent a year in Berlin with a shaved head and a big button that said "fool." And I went, wow, that's efficient. You chase away everybody except the people who would get you. and so, as we approach the equinox, which is the 22nd at 3:22 p.m. Eastern time, and we have a full moon just before it, which is right in the middle of the Canadian election in the evening of the 20th. As we come to this culmination at the end of the 6 light months, I want to talk a little bit about, and we move into Libra, I want to talk a bit about relationship, because I looked at the charts of both the full moon and the equinox, which are fairly similar in many ways. And it's incredible relationship initiations. Oh my Lord. And it made me think of the famous couples and friendships between people who are totally at opposite ends in their political beliefs and all that, but they love and support and respect and listen to each other and learn from each other. And the way I put it, light from many sources leaves no shadows, and so I love listening to people who know how to disagree honorably, who know how to present their case and their way of seeing, who understand the difference between a fact and an opinion. They understand how to let someone disagree, let someone challenge them and go, and learn from that. There was a famous couple who worked for opposite political parties, and they got married. They couldn't even see each other during that particular election, okay, because they were working for opposite parties, right? And then when they finally got married, she said, and they both were still quite famous, and she said, my husband has 2 rules. She said, 1, even if you totally disagree with me, you still have to listen. And 2, you're looking at it from your perspective. You got to look at it from where I'm seeing from, And those are 2 really good guidelines for a successful relationship, right? On the mental level, right? And so when I look at the planet Venus, which rules Libra, the sign that we're about to go into, and I see the powerful aspects, Lord, and it's a very transformational fall. Woo! And on so many levels, because there's there's been a lot of divisions among people right now, and a lot of things coming to a head. But I really think where the breakthrough is, it's a Libra breakthrough, the ability to set standards for honorable discourse, as I was just talking about, right, and the ability to listen to those who disagree, and the ability to feel the soul of the person who disagrees with you, and who they really are, what their values really are, So I want to talk about Libra, but first I want to talk about the light and the dark for a moment, because we're going from the light to the dark, at least in the Northern Hemisphere. We've had 6 months of predominantly light, okay? And we're about to have 6 months of predominantly dark, which extends from Libra to Pisces. And I want to, there's a place to shine, to be the light. And then there's a space to be the empty space in which someone else can appear, to be as empty as possible so you can truly receive someone, without all of your opinions about them. It's like to be ill. And so that is, and meditation can be involved with both. How do you find that radiant energy that's underneath your personality and that fills you up and that radiates from you? A lot of people hang out with the great masters, not for what they have to say, but for what they radiate. They just, melt into the light just by being around them, And when I do a reading, I'm always trying to come to unite my intellect with the spirit so that my words are infused with energy, that radiates into the other person and resonates them with their own beauty. That's basically what I'm doing underneath it all, And so, and how do we get all the different aspects of our life, our practical life, our social life, all lined up with the light? And so that is the moon degree of the full moon. I have it is the symbol for it is light going through a prism. So there's the one light, but then there's all the different aspects of life, all the different ways in which that light, all the different colors of life. The red color has a whole other, so-called lower chakra energy, and the violet has, so-called upper chakra. And how do you get all the spectrums of your being aligned? And so I do a kind of astrology where every single degree is a different world, as if you had 360 different signs. Okay. Like, for example, I was born the 18th day of Virgo, and the symbol for that is a Ouija board. So how do I express myself? By disappearing, by allowing this thing to come through me, and that's my discipline, and I stand or fall by the accuracy of my ability to do that, and I've written many stories about, I lived on nothing off on the road for years, where if I didn't pull a rabbit out of a hat, if I didn't produce a miracle, I was in deep trouble, and I learned so much about how this universe operates through doing that for quite a few years. It wasn't the easiest initiation in the world. So as we enter into the 6 dark months, that it starts with, how do I want to play relationships this year, and the sign Libra has many levels to it. The first level associated with Venus is pleasing each other. I mow your lawn, you pay me, I like you, you like me, I'll give you a back rub, you give me a back rub, or something else, whatever, that's simple getting alongness and pleasing each other. Then there's this next level of relationship that is what Mary Matalin, the married woman, was talking about, and her husband's rules. What's his name? James Carville. That ability to get inside what in the Stranger in a Strange Land they call grok, to truly understand where a fundamentalist is coming from, truly understand where this group, that group, this race, that, this gender, that gender, where is that person seeing from, and how do I really get into their head? That's a whole other level, into their soul. That's a whole other level of intimacy, besides I like the way you kiss or whatever, and then from that seeing and aligning with that person, then comes the next level of relationship, which is what can we do together that fully expresses you and fully expresses me. I'm a writer, you're a producer, let's make a movie, but what movie would you want? What movie embodies your values? What movie embodies my values? And this is the really high level of relationship, between when two people are fully being themselves, and the other person gives them the space, what I was talking about, to fully be themselves. And then a whole other level of relationship is possible, where if I notice, this is again where meditation comes in, if I notice, ooh, I just got offended, it doesn't mean I have to yell at you. It just means let me feel I'm being offended. Why am I being offended? What are you triggering? And then even the hard parts of relationship become a doorway to growth. So to me, the equinox is largely about that, is that it's in the traditional, it would be like Virgo, the last month of summer is you harvest everything, and then you can have a harvest festival and get together with people and do some canning together for the winter or whatever, and the social energy comes in, so but as I look at the chart, and again in astrology, the chart of the beginning of something is the chart of the whole thing. The chart of I now pronounce you husband and wife is the chart of the entire marriage. The chart of when you sign the contract is the chart of the entire enterprise. The chart of when you get the key is the chart of the whole time you spend in that house. And so, I among other things, I love doing relationship astrology because it's so complicated. You have like 144 relationships going on at the same time between 82 people. you know, and there are parts of it that we don't even intersect. You go off and, you know, play bridge, and I go, you know, write my book, you know. There are parts where it really flows easily, which is what drew you together. And then there are the tough parts. How could she possibly act that way? You know, well, she acts that way. What are you gonna do about it? You know, do you really want to be with her? If so, you may have to bend a little. You may have to grow a little. You know, she may have something to teach you. You know, and so that's what fascinates me about, you know, relationship charts. And it's, for me, it's so good to have the heads up of astrology. I mean, one time, over a period of a couple of years, I had two different women interested in me, and I go, okay, this one is a bit of a control freak, so you better have good boundaries. She's a really gut level truth teller, so if you have too much insecurity or vanity, don't even bother, you know. But she's loyal as could possibly be. You know, she would die for you, okay? And she's gutsy and passionate and probably amazing in bed, okay? And this other person, let's see, she'll give you a whole lot of freedom, but she's going to demand a lot of freedom. She's got a lot of love, but it's kind of universal love, so don't be fooled, okay? And you go into much more depth than that. She's got an impatient streak, which, you know, etc. You know, to have a heads up on that. But again, it's free will astrology, meaning two people can have the identical charts, and very different character. They're working with the same stuff, but on what level are you playing your horoscope? Are you really awake to all of what's inside you? Are you really healing, you know, the stuff that's been getting in your way? Can you even see the stuff that's getting in your way? You know, and so I remember I once met my astral twin, someone born the same time zone, same date. Okay. And a friend of mine found him in a yoga ashram in California, while the only time in my life I was in an ashram in Houston, you know, and I finally met him, and he walked in with his red beard and silver wire rims. I had a red beard and silver wire rims. And I said, did you go vegetarian the summer of 72? Yeah. You know, was fall 71 really creative artistically? Yeah. You know, and so, how can I put it? Maybe we should, but again, so my business partner, who's a karate and yoga guy, said, I wonder where my astral twin is. And I said, he's probably in prison. And because his chart is so intense that if you don't play it right, if you don't wind up being teaching karate or whatever, you're going to be doing something else with it, you know. And so that's free will astrology. The chart is not telling you what to do. It's just giving you powers to work with, you know. And so to know your nature, to discipline your nature. And what's discipline? It's just noticing what works and what doesn't work, and having the persistence to stick with what does work and learning the lessons about what doesn't work. And so what I've been calling the planetary eases and diseases, right? Again, it looks like a healthy Saturn. You're organized, you finish what you want to do, you've decided what you want to do, you organize your time to make it happen. You know, I remember when we bunch of found a 14-year-old guru, amazing guy, this is in the early 70s, and he just said to us, you know, if you're just a lazy old hippie, you might as well forget it. You know, imagine being disciplined by 14-year-olds, you know, and so if your Saturn works, then you are who you say you are, you finish what you say you're going to finish, your life reflects your values. But one Saturn disease would be you're a total control freak and you drive everybody away. And the other would be you're a total mess, you can't get anything together. Whereas a healthy Saturn is neither one of those. You know, it's right in the center. You know? And so, and the same thing, even if I have the chart of someone, it doesn't mean I truly know their character, which is where the psychic thing kicks in. Okay. The ability to read, how are they playing this set of possibilities, you know? But even then, I don't even necessarily have to know that, because I can tell them this is what it looks like if your life works with this chart, and this is what it probably looks like if it's not working so much, you know. And that's important, because people used to tell me you're too positive. Show me the dark stuff, you know. And I won't necessarily show you the dark stuff. I'll show you the dark stuff that could be if you're playing it this way, or if you play it that way. And that's the evolution. That's the challenge. That's the heroic path, you know, of the chart. And so what I'm doing is I'm supporting the hero in you, basically, you know. And also there's something called elective astrology, where you can choose the timing of something. Okay. When do I sign the contract? What day and time should we have the wedding, etc. And I've done that many times in my own life, timing things. Because how can I put it? And again, most of what I know about astrology, the reading I did way back in my early 20s, but most of what I know about astrology comes from watching people. I see the chart, especially the people in my private life. I don't hang out with my clients, but for the most part, though friends can be clients. But to watch people closely and go, oh, that's how Venus and Scorpio operates. Oh, file that, and that's how Venus and Scorpio squared Uranus in the 10th house, booga operates. It gets way more specific. And that's another thing I had to learn over the years, is there's exceptions every which way. And you got to be able to figure them out. Ordinarily, this means this, except there's this other thing that's going in there. Oh, well, that's an interesting conflict. There's one side of it that's like this, and the other side of it wants that. And she has to reconcile them. Wow, that's a good path of growth, And so it's allowed me to be endlessly fascinated by the human psyche and how it operates, and how, you see, to me, astrology shows the unexpressed self. Okay, the self that maybe nobody is seeing necessarily, the self that maybe even the person themselves doesn't fully know that that's in them and wants to come out, wants to be a part of their life, And so again, ordinarily reading for me is 4 MP3s, about 13 minutes each, roughly. Again, the time, the length doesn't matter. It's how many zingers you get is what matters, or I'll often do a 5-page written one, which is more contemplative. Whereas when it's recorded with the voice, I can ramble a bit. I can tell stories and flesh something out. But the advantage of the written one is that it's just right to the point. It's right there. You don't have to find it on the recording. It's all right there in front of you. But again, for me, I realized that the big breakthrough I had was early on in the 70s, when I would notice, I was doing a lot of quality control in the beginning, right? Man, I just fried my brain doing that one. It's like, okay. And I finally got that when I unite the intellect with the spirit, when I look at a chart and I kind of become the chart, like an actor looking at a script, and you can feel that character that script embodies. That's kind of where I come from, as I look at the chart until you start to come to life. And at that moment, I turn on the recorder or start writing. Again, it's a fascinating vocation, and it's demanding. It's almost always impossible in a sense. Sometimes I've stared at the chart and go, give them their money back. I can't do this, and then maybe I'll pray a little, or I'll go, I got it, and then other charts that just jump at me. I'm turning on the recorder, within seconds after I draw up the math. They're so obvious, but where does that knowing come from? And I want to say just a little bit here, and then we'll see if we want to pause. Well, I want to say a little bit more about this time in this year. They'll just like 3-4 minutes. Actually, now that I just lost my first thread, might as well go and do that. I wrote a article for Om Times in early 2020, in which I said 2020 is going to be one of the most transformative years in human history, because there were so many things that were coalescing. It was the end of the 20-year cycle. It began with the so-called War on Terror. There's a 20-year cycle of Jupiter and Saturn that tells a 20-year story, as it were. The 60s, the 80s, that where the theme just changes about what we're about. Okay. And that's Jupiter and Saturn coming together, which they did 2020. And then there's Saturn and Pluto, which is a slower cycle. Those are real changes, like right after World War II. It's like, okay, we have to reinvent the world out of the ashes of what we just did to each other. How are we going to do that? How are we going to get a more peaceful world? How are we going to give the working class a fair chance? And that was one whole story. And then the early 80s was the next story. Brezhnev died, and just various things happened, Reagan, Thatcher, Mulroney, etc. And that was a whole other story. And that story came to an end in 2020. So once more time, a radical restructuring of everything, which occurs when Saturn and Pluto come together every 30 odd years. And so to have those two things simultaneously, I'm like, whoa. And then next year is the Pluto return, of 1776, which is not just about the US. It's about bringing this whole idea that we can invent our own government, we can invent our own way of living, we can create a society where everyone can be themselves and not be dictated to by someone who happens to have more money, more clout, more power, the guns, the bombs, the whatever, that we can create a world that really works, that is both allows freedom for the individual and allows real caring and cooperation so that people don't drop through the cracks and go get an assault rifle because they've been alienated, and so this chance to totally reinvent civilization is what last year was about. What's coming in now with Jupiter and Saturn in Aquarius, first time since the early 60s together, is we're reinventing community, and these Zoom things are part of that. Okay, that the fact that people have been confined and having to relate in these other ways is setting the stage for things we could never even guess, for how to create global community, how to create a global economy, how to create a non-hierarchical economy where people are working for themselves, as it were, and yet they have this network that allows them to do that, without having to be a business genius, And so there's a complete reinvention of the structure of civilization, a questioning of virtually everything. This whole year, Saturn square Uranus has been about responsibility and authority versus freedom. And the things that we're not allowed to talk about tonight are all tied in with that. Okay. Some people say, yeah, wait, you're infringing on my freedom, and others, you're being irresponsible and endangering everybody else, right? And so there's this dance going on. That's all part of that. And that's all part of what is the proper balance between authority, responsibility to others, limiting yourself for the sake of cooperation with others. And I don't want to limit myself that way, or that way. That's an infringement on my life, and I'm not going to put up with it. And so in this tension of opposites, of the freedom energy and the responsibility energy, and the inventing of new structures. And the Zoom thing is a part of that, reinventing community and the questioning, I said, of everything, and a whole new kind of humanitarianism. Back in the previous time, you had songs like Blowing in the Wind coming out, and a questioning of things and an appeal to that sense of justice inside each of us, So it's going to be an exciting time out of the ashes of old structures as we really reinvent civilization, which all ties in with the bigger picture, the age of Aquarius. These are extremely slow cycles. Basically, when a top slows down, when it's fitting, it starts to slow down, it starts to wobble. Well, the Earth wobbles once every 26,000 years. And if you break that 26,000 years into 12, roughly, you get 2,160 years. And these are the ages. And so we're just finishing, they go backwards. So we're just finishing the age of Pisces, where we're all supposed to learn compassion, supposed to learn the spiritual reality, which tended into fanaticism, but it's about, everybody matters and nobody's better than anybody else. And we need to learn how to care about everybody. That's great. But can I care on my terms, or do I have to follow your terms? So the age of Pisces had bad boundaries, The age of Aquarius, which is what's slowly coming in, age of Pisces is about divine love, universal love, selfless love. Next thing you know, Canadians are dying for Bosnian Muslims, and they didn't even know what a Bosnian Muslim was 5 years ago. That the selfless love, yeah, but Aquarius is about divine intelligence. I am the creator. I am the inventor. And this explosion of invention in the last couple hundred years, since Uranus, the ruler of Aquarius, was discovered in 1781. The whole idea that we can be free. We can invent our own structures. We can invent our own lives. And also genius. Pick your traditions that you want to keep, pick the ones you want to throw out, invent your own tribe, invent your own community, invent your own way of being with people. And Aquarius rules the ankles. The ankles are support. Aquarius is the water bearer, which in the days before Wells, water bearer was the life of the community. And so the ability to care about the whole community is Aquarius. And yet the ankle is also pivoting, like a dancer or a basketball player, right? And so pivoting is the ability to turn in a different direction. Now I'm hearing, so you see, what we can do is to try something new if you're crazy too. When I did a radio show where I chose a song for each of the signs, for Aquarius, I chose 4 songs from Crown of Creation by Jefferson Airplane. And one of them was the song Triad by David Crosby, which is, about, we can invent it any way we want to play it. A relationship is whatever you and I say it is. Because you're the woman, I'm the man, it doesn't mean I have to be the breadwinner and you have to be the housekeeper. We can do anything. As Dylan put it, I ain't looking for you to be like me, P like me, or C like me. All I really want to do is, baby, be friends with you. And so that ability to say, we don't have to dance whatever the official dance is now. I can dance alone. You can lead. Nobody can lead. We can dance in a threesome. That understanding that we can liberate the instincts, we can liberate our nature, we can find a way of being together where nothing is assumed. A relationship is whatever you and I say it is. And that's on every level, And so that's the kind of energy that's coming back again, is that spirit of invention that is the nature of the coming age of Aquarius, where we care about each other, but we're also free and individual, So that's the big picture. Whatever that thing that I forgot to talk about before is long gone.
Well, thank you, Richard. That was magnificent. So much to understand and process. And what I love is the unity consciousness. We're moving forward into the light, what I call 2100. This is scientific fact. It's not just prophecy, although it has been prophesized. And the fundamental principle in the order of the universe is everything is energy. We're all part of one energy field, and we're individual lights, sparks of light within one energy field. So, it's cliched, but to really respect and love and honor each other as kin is what I love about understanding the bigger picture of what's going on. So I would like to open it up. Richard's here for you. We have some time for dialogue and discussion. Do you have any comments, questions about what Richard shared, about the future, about how you're navigating through this, and how Richard might be able to provide some counsel from an astrological point of view? So who would like to begin? Anybody?
I would like to. It's Teresa.
Oh, hi. Teresa's on the phone. So I hope everybody can hear her. Go ahead, Teresa.
Yeah, okay. Actually, two questions. Like, how has it been determined to give certain qualities, like attributes, to certain planets?
Yeah.
Like I've read about astrology, and for instance, like my sun is in the Sagittarius, and my moon is in Capricorn, and I've read about that, and it's quite an interesting journey. But I've always asked myself, like, how has it evolved in astrology that certain planets are attributed certain qualities, and how they affect us at the time of our birth?
Yeah. Well, two things I want to say. First of all, it's not necessarily that the planets affect us. In other words, in the old days, we used to have noon whistles at places of work, right? The noon whistle doesn't make you hungry. It just tells you what time it is, time for lunch, And so the planets are a signal. They're not necessarily a cause. I would more like say the planets and us are common effects of a cause, whoever created the universe. But as far as how did people come to this conclusion about just Mars means this and Saturn means that, that's the interesting thing. What I find interesting is that cultures who once knew nothing about each other until the last few centuries, right, came to similar conclusions about the planets. The Hindu astrology, they call it Jyotish or Vedic astrology, has a very different system. The signs aren't exactly the same. They're skewed off about 20-something degrees. That's a long story, the difference between tropical astrology and sidereal astrology, which is where the astronomers come in and go, no, you guys are off by sign. It's all bunk. No, you don't know about precession of the equinoxes. That's a long story. But the Hindu astrology have basically the same planets. How did they come to the same conclusion that we came to, even though we didn't even know each other? I've seen native astrology, similar stuff, North American astrology. So I think my guess about it, and again, it is remarkable they came to the same conclusions. My feeling is this: they didn't watch Netflix at night; they watched the skies, right? And my feeling is also that the priests or priestesses or whoever was in the temple, whoever had passed on these thousands of years of tradition, and whoever was taken on, the predictive thing or from watching the planets and stars, I bet it was partly channeled and partly learning from experience. See, if you really do watch the sky, which of course I do, how people recognize the planets is they move. They're not in the same place all the time. The stars every 24 hours minus 4 minutes, let's say 25 degrees of Aquarius will rise today, and 1 day later, less 4 minutes, it'll rise the next day. Now, the reason there's this discrepancy of 4 minutes is that the sun moves 1 degree forward every day. Okay, and so 1 day, 25 Aquarius will rise, and then it'll rise the next day, and 4 minutes later. And so if the sun is at 24 degrees Aquarius 1 day, and the next day is at 25 degrees Aquarius, then basically, that's the 24 hours. I don't need to explain all this, but that people would watch the fixed stars. They were always in the same place, and then they would watch. Oh, the moon is changing every night. Oh, Jupiter's changing too. Oh, Jupiter's going backwards, seemingly. It's called retrograde. And they began to watch the patterns, and then they would watch the things that were happening here, and then they would start channeling, and somehow they came to the understanding of how this thing works. And I think some element of it was probably psychic. I want to mention one last thing, and I did a whole talk on this. That of the all the planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto are what I call the three superpowers: higher intuition, higher intelligence, the psychic, which very much is tied in with astrology and how I do it. It rules the new age. Neptune, which is infinite ecstasy and universal love and ultimate fulfillment, and Pluto, which is the domain of power, the domain of magic, the domain of scientific prayer, the domain of the Tao, the domain of the ability to align with the power of all powers and produce results that equal anything modern science has to offer. And so when we can tap into these higher powers, we can live life on a whole other level and do things that would be downright dangerous for someone who didn't have access to those three higher powers. That's a long answer. How was that?
It's good. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Can I just ask you one additional question? I'll make it very short.
Mm-hmm.
As I mentioned, I'm Sagittarius moon,
Capricorn moon.
Sun, and Capricorn
Look the other way.
moon. And I have been going through a bit of a tough time when it has come to home residence.
Yes.
Dealing with a living issue. And I'm wanting to move into a better place, maybe even out of the building. But at the same time, I'm just feeling like there is kind of a stuckedness inside of me. I don't know if that's enough information or is there anything going on with planets in terms of residence and homes right now?
Yeah, well, here's the deal. In astrology, you got the planets, which are the archetypes, a different part of your nature. You have the signs, which is how they express. Then you have the houses, in other words, which are different areas of the sky. In other words, the planets every day, the planets and the stars move through the houses. Okay, so the bottom part of the chart, where the sun is roughly between 10 p.m. and midnight, that's called the fourth house, which is the house of the home. And so if I were analyzing that, I would look at the planets that are in the home. I would look at what's called the ruler of the home, what sign is on this house of the home. I would look at what's going on in the sky right now with transits to your chart related to home. And we would see what would be the issue right now. What is the opportunity right now? What is being asked right now? And again, being a Sag with a Capricorn moon, you probably go back and forth between the Sag who wants, I'm hearing the Dixie Chicks, wide open spaces, that wants to grow, and the Capricorn moon, which is inherently cautious. Okay. And one is ruled by Jupiter, one's ruled by Saturn. And if you know the old Greek mythology, Greco-Roman, Saturn swallows all his kids. It's like when you commit to a structure, you get married, you raise, whatever it is, a job, whatever. That's Saturn, and Saturn swallows all the kids. I mean, I'm confined. I got to be there 9 to 5 or whatever. And Jupiter makes Saturn barf up the kids and liberate them. And so Jupiter's like, I want to go for the possibilities versus I want to go for the certainties, and they don't always go together. And so.
It's like a dance between different parts of oneself. Like the Sagittarius wants to move forward, get out of this building, just go out there and put my life together, get back into my art and creativity. And yet the Capricorn inside of me is, okay, this is good location, good rent, blah, blah, blah. The management is not so good. The people's not so good, but I can cope with that. Maybe I'll make it work somehow. And I'm finding, especially with this ascension process, there's so many energies, coming in, that this is really affecting, the different aspects of my sign even more.
Yeah, exactly. But I want to say about the superpower, to be able to do an affirmation, I know. Just sit there and say, I know. Because when you do that over and over again, the you that knows is not the mind. Okay. So by saying, I know, you're automatically getting out of your mind. You're getting out of your head. You're going into the higher intelligence. The Uranus, the higher intelligence, it begins the whole 22 steps of the tarot, which starts with the Fool, which is numbered 0, because intuition comes in an empty mind, and that's the nature of the 3 superpowers. You have to empty to let them in, and so the Fool is always stepping off the cliff. That's the situation, So what you want right now is an accurate intuition that you can rely on, okay? And so to just take the stand, I empty all my ideas, all my debates, all my fears, all my lusts, all my everything, and I become a 0. I become pure consciousness with no form, which is who I am anyway. My consciousness is the clay out of which everything is made.
That's a perfect segue. We're just watching our time.
Yeah.
Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, Teresa. That's a perfect segue. Empty vessel, empty mind, Reiki, energy channeling. So any other very, very quick question for Richard before we go into our Reiki sending?
I have a quickie, I think. I had a formulated question, but I got so involved with your answer to Teresa that I kind of lost it. But hi, I'm Vivian from Toronto. Great fan of yours, Richard. I had gifted to me from a friend your reading for me, which I listen to every birthday of mine. So thank you for that. I'm a great fan of Lidia. I just want a little clarification question here. So I'm hearing that you said I need to digest my notes a little bit more, but that we're in transition from the age of Pisces, where everyone was being selfless and taking upon everybody's cause, etc., into the age of Aquarius. So the question is this the same thing that happened when the age of Aquarius existed long ago, when I was going around with protest signs and, like 70s outfits? Is that age of Aquarius?
Well, the idea of the age of Aquarius was brought into the public domain through the people who wrote the play Hair, and then the group, the Fifth Dimension, right?
Right.
Who combined the first and the last song of that play. Let the Sunshine In is the last one, right?
Right.
And you also had Easy. You had Easy to Be Hard. Yeah. Good Morning Starshine. So that brought it to the public domain. Now the song itself is a little ridiculous on one level. When the moon is in the 7th house, the moon is in the 7th house every day, okay? When it's just about to set, it's in the 7th house, okay? Jupiter aligns with Mars every 2 years, no big deal, right? But it sure sounds nice. It makes a great song, right? It's very ritualistic. It almost started tripping. I actually saw Hair just off the energy of the opening ritual that song was a part of, when I was in Boston in 1970. And so, but harmony and understanding, sympathy and trust, about no more falsehoods or derisions, golden living, etc. It's obviously totally idealistic, which is in the nature of the age, as it were. Like the song Woodstock by Joni Mitchell. It's very, very idealistic. We could use more of that, actually, to tell you the truth. But But yeah, that is what it's about, but a little more sophisticated in the understanding of what it actually means in the language of real astrology.
Is it more on an intellectual level this time? Are we hopefully gaining some knowledge from, I don't know what's out there aligned in the stars and the planets, but are we becoming more intelligent with like perhaps trying to understand each other and trying to work communally and as
Right.
a world together instead of each.
Right. Well, it begs the question, because there's been a kind of a regression. There was, because without getting political, the entrenched powers don't like too much freedom for people. They don't like too much, people getting, they don't think in terms of the big we. And so to me, it reminds me of the opening line to Tale of Two Cities. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. The darkness is coming up, and it's coming up big time, and then Pluto's going to go into Aquarius in a few years, and then Neptune's going into Aries. Right now, Neptune's in Pisces, the first time since the mid 1800s, when the working class began to rise up. But when Neptune went into Aries, right when the U.S. Civil War began, and so the need to be aggressive on behalf of compassion will be coming in. So when Neptune goes into Aries and Pluto goes into Aquarius very soon, it's going to be a major shakeup. It's going to all turn into action. Right now, what you want is get your vision right, get your spiritual alignment right. Get your how you discipline your life so you're consistently in touch with your spiritual guidance, which is the most important thing. That's what it means, that line, unless the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it. And how do you let the Lord build the house? You got to you got to get in tune with that which is beyond the finite, beyond the comings and the goings, beyond the ups and the downs. Be in tune with that thing that does not change. Be in tune with that thing that is absolutely solid, reliable, intelligent, loving, and powerful. And be consistently with that. And so, and that's preparation for what's going to come, because it's going to get hairy. It's going to get hairy. But if you're in tune, everything, again, there's New Testament line, all things work together for good for them that love the, call it Lord, Lady, Goddess, whatever you want to call it, And so everything will work for you if you are one with the one for whom everything works. Oh, there's a good line.
Magnificent.
That was great. Thank you.
Well, and on that note, one of my teachers, Michio Kushi in macrobiotics, said at this time we're evolving from Homo sapien to Homo spiritus. And that's exactly what Richard is talking about, that the more that we can connect with our spirit, with our soul in a conscious way, and allow the subconscious of the soul to come through, and then be conscious of that. And then we feel secure in our own state of being, because we know the knowing that Richard talked about. We know that we are supported by the infinite universe. I always give the example. Years ago, I saw a video. I think that it's much greater now, but they said there's 100 billion, 100 billion solar systems in our Milky Way galaxy, and 100 billion Milky Way galaxies in our universe. So we are part of 100 billion times 100 billion sources of energy. And we always have that with us at all times to support us. And we don't want to forget that we're part of this greater, you might say game, but the greater universe. So we can feel secure when we connect with that infinite spirit. And that's exactly what Richard is talking about in terms of, connecting with that, but in a conscious way where we can live it and ground ourselves in the essence of our own being, and then become the captain of our ship. So Richard, and then we'll go into our meditation Reiki.
Okay. All right, let me say one 1 minute story that nails this completely. My Saturn is, my discipline is I'm a lion tamer. That's the ability to overcome fear and hold space, right, in any situation. And the exact day, we have what's called a Saturn return when you're 29 and a half. And Elias, the mad street prophet, had his hand on my collar going, "You only 3/4 dead. You understand me?" And I looked into his eyes and I did a little quick prayer. Well, okay, God, you're obviously trying to get through to me, so I'm listening. And I just surrendered. And so he said, "You understand me?" And I said, "I feel you." And so like the perfect line came through. How are you gonna fight that? I feel you, you know? And I didn't fight, I didn't run, I didn't resist, I didn't defend. I completely surrendered into his eyes. That's the power of alignment. You know, and then he let go of me. He said, and a tear came out of each eye. He just went, "Can't believe I'm here. One thing I know for certain is in the first time we've been together." You know, and so we just sat in silence for a long time. That's how powerful this is. So that no matter, so that anything that shows up in front of us, the scariest thing, you know, it's pretty scary, right? Can just turn into something perfect and something beautiful, you know, just by letting go, being anchored in that which is not in time and space, so you can play time and space. Or as my teacher put it, if you want to push a car, you need one foot outside the car. And if you got your first foot, like a quarterback, you know, on their back foot, you got your first foot outside this world, first foot in that which is eternal, then we can really play time space, you know, with all the ups and downs and all the adventures of it. And yet our satisfaction, our power, our insight and direction do not come from this world. That's what it is to be an initiate. That's the way we can play this life as it gets crazy. And then we can really be of service to others without trying to be of service to others. We're just in surrender the way I am right now. And so everything just comes through and gives people what they need. An infinite generosity.
Infinite generosity. I love that. How perfect is that?
We receive so we can give.
That's right. We're always receiving and giving. We're receivers of infinite energy, and we radiate that out again. And then we refine that in our offerings in our daily life, right? How we choose to live. But I think we could talk for hours about a lot of these things. We'll have to do it again. But if you do have to leave, it's 5:03. That's no problem. But we are going to do the long distance Reiki. And if you'd like to participate, we'll get ourselves nice and comfortable. Richard, did you want to the word set some sort of intention or something like that before we start?
I mean, do a 30-second spell,
or just to help activate the connection of mind and of body, mind, spirit. Because all of us, because all of us are bridging the material and spiritual world right now. So if there's something that you can help us in your beautiful words to bridge that.
Yeah, we offer our hearts and our minds and our wills back to that which is perfect, so we can enjoy being one with that which is perfect. And by letting go into that beautiful, beautiful vibration that Lidia is supplying and that is coming through, that it lives inside all of us as us, we can melt into that gorgeous place of wholeness and completeness and richness and overflowing well-being coming from the infinite well that is behind this universe.
Beautiful. So let's all take a nice deep breath. We'll go for about 7 minutes or so. And I'm just going to channel the energy without attachment and send it all to you. And it'll be an opportunity for us to get grounded and clear and energized. So we take a nice deep breath. I'm going to mute in a minute and imagine ourselves in a beautiful place in perfect health in every way, and the river of infinite white light coming in, healing every cell in our body.